Joining me to discuss is Florida Attorney General and member of the Republican AGs Association, Ashley Moody. Ashley, it's good to see you, and I got to say that is a powerful ad that was released. Why do you think we are seeing such lawlessness and violence right now?
Good morning, Emma. You know, this is obvious to so many of us that are living as we're watching these things go on our televisions and are appalled and aghast and astounded that you have leaders that have taken oaths, these mayors in these cities where there is violence occurring. And when I talk to law enforcement, they're keeping law enforcement from getting out of their cars. They're trapping them in their cars. They're trapping them in buildings. They're throwing bricks, hitting them with rods, trying to attack them with fireworks. This is not just peaceful protests, which we should support and defend as free speech, but violence is unacceptable. And let me just say, these mayors, these so-called leaders, they took oaths to uphold the laws in their cities. This is a complete application of their responsibilities. Yes, it's an absence of leadership, but it's more than that. It is a basic disregard for their fundamental responsibilities. And if they're not going to do their job, if they're not going to support the law enforcement that they oversee, their local law enforcement, if they're not going to go in and stop violence and protect property and citizens, somebody's got to do it, and those leaders need to be removed from office because they're not doing their jobs. I'm
hearing your frustration. I mean, this morning we're reporting on the fact that 15 people were shot in Chicago near a funeral home that was honoring the life of someone who was shot in Chicago. I mean, it's happening, and the mayor is seemingly not doing anything about it. So when you're coming from an AG perspective, why aren't they taking these steps to come forward and to prosecute criminals and get them off the streets?
Look, as attorneys general across the nation, we're considered the chief legal officers. We work day in and day out with law enforcement and prosecutors. At the fundamental requirement of our job is we have to push forward and make sure that our communities are secure and our laws are up. That is our job. But let me just say, that perspective goes so far beyond my role as Attorney General. I'm a former federal prosecutor, a former judge for over a decade, the wife of a law enforcement officer. But let me just say, I'm also a mother of a young child who watches daily the television and asks me why this is going on across our nation. He's afraid, like so many children around this nation, like so many families. And they're asking, why is this happening? This is not America. This is not what our communities expect of their leaders. And if we want our country, our way of life, our system under a rule of law to continue, if we want this to be the greatest nation on earth, we must have leaders that are brave enough and courageous enough to step up and say this is not right, it's wrong, this is damaging our communities, and do their jobs. Our adversaries around the world are laughing at what's going on right now.
I hear your passion. I hear you. I understand. Ashley, we've got about 20 seconds left. Just, your advice to those states where we are seeing this violence, these riots, these protests that have turned ugly, quite frankly. How do we get this correct?
The leaders that have abdicated their responsibility, their oath to defend the laws and protect their citizens, they need to hear from these families and these citizens that are afraid. They need to hear that we expect violence in our streets to be eradicated. They want leaders in this area. They need leaders in this area. They need to know that they will support law enforcement in protecting their families and their homes and their children. And as Attorney General of the state of Florida, I will continue to advocate that. I will continue to support our law enforcement men and women. And I hope other leaders and others Attorney Generals across the nation will do the same.
That's Ashley Moody, Attorney General of Florida. Ashley, thank you for coming on and joining us today.
Thank you.
You got it.
Have a great.
All right. We want to bring back